Yeah, so I was able to put together an OpenSCAD file for these parts to make it easier to modify. Having the OpenSCAD file, you just go in here, like I did with this, and measure the inside of the gauge housing, and then you just put that dimension in OpenSCAD, and there you've got the perfectly fitting ring in there. Okay, here's my OpenSCAD model for what I'm calling the gauge bezel diffuser. It's basically the plastic ring that goes around the inside of the gauge housing and basically supports the glass. On many gauges, the backlight comes up around the face of the gauge and lights up the front by transmitting through this ring. So if you print that in a clear or translucent type filament, you can let that light through. Couple of things you have to watch for. You need to make sure the ring comes in farther than the glass does, because part of the reason for the ring is to support the glass and keep it off of the needle on the gauge. You also need to make sure it's just a little bit below the rim of the gauge housing, because the little bezel or whatever you call this ring that goes over it bends down a little bit, so you push this over and then it gets crimped back in place. So that's what kind of holds the glass down firmly on the gauge. I was going to test it with one of the backlights, so I can't find out what these bulbs are called. They're about 9 millimeters diameter. You can get like PA9 bulbs, but they have the bayonet fittings here, the little bump outs. With this bulb, it just sort of fits into this socket here, and then there's kind of this rubber cover that goes over and holds it in place, and there's no electrical connection in the socket. It's just got 2 wires hardwired, which means I can't easily replace this with an LED. I figure I might as well just keep these the way they are, but that means the color can't be changed. So let me show you what color these are. Okay, I've got those hooked up to my 12-volt battery pack here, and you can see they're sort of a yellow, but I wanted more of a greenish tint here, and that's why I originally tried printing this diffuser ring in the green filament to try to change the color. But you get some color around the outside from the ring, but the majority of it is through the gauge face. So I thought this was metal. It's actually not a metal. I think this is like a frosted plastic, and then they probably silk screened the black over the top. So that means you get kind of warm white letters there and not a lot of green through the outside. That original plan didn't really work. I took a green felt pen and tried, painting the outside of this, but you don't get enough green. Then I was thinking to get some green glass paint, a translucent green paint. Since this is an incandescent bulb, that's going to get hot, and that paint tends to flake off over time. Since I had the green filament in the printer, I thought I would try printing a diffuser cap that would turn it green, and I think that'll do the trick. So this is out of green PETG. Oh, I probably printed close to a dozen of these different sizes. In the bottom of that socket tube there's kind of a ridge that stops the bulb from going in, and so I tried to print that or duplicate that on this cap. Yeah, so here's my OpenSCAD model for what I call the bulb diffuser. So it's basically just a cap that presses down into the tube where the bulb fits and down at the bottom, and then the bulb fits into this hemispherical recess here, and I printed it out of a green PETG filament to give the white incandescent bulb a green tint. I'm basically going to jam this in there, and I won't be able to get it back out, but I didn't want it going all the way inside the gauge, because then it would just be a loose, rattly piece of plastic in there. The glass is about 9mm diameter, and this flange here is about 10mm. Like I say, it's a tight fit, and I'm not going to be able to get this back out once I get it in there. But that's the whole idea, is I don't want to take this out. Okay, I think it's in there. That is not coming out. What I found to press it in, I got a 10mm bolt here with the threads, which is just under 10, and you can see how that fits in there. And I was able to push that in square because I didn't want to get it tipped over to the side. So it basically stops right at the bottom there because there's a little bit of a flange. So let's see what this looks like. It's kind of hard with the light here, but there is a green tint to the letters, and I don't need these really bright. I mean, all I need is something in the dark that you can see. So I think that's going to work between the ring on the outside letting some green light around, and then the green light coming in from the back. And you can see that fits in there just about like normal. I need to clean this one up because that's going to be your last opportunity to clean the inside of the gauge out, so you might as well clean it up. Put the ring in, put your clean glass in, put the ring around the outside, lightly crimp it so it's held tight. So yeah, let me show you what everything looks like when I figure out what I'm going to do, if I want to change anything. Stay tuned and we'll check out the finished product.